Welcome back to the Witchy Web We Weave. I'm Alex.
I'm Alara.
And this is
Al.
We're all A's.
Ow!
Did he just nibble you?
No, he dug his claws into me a little bit because he wants me to pat.
Calm down, Pooch. Alright, so today is the next in the Futhark Friday series. We are talking about... Sorry, I'm about pronunciation, but the way the website and the book I have say to pronounce is Raidho. Like, Raidho, like, hi-ho, silver away. Like,
Raidho.
Pretty much. The only other thing I think I've seen it, like, broken up would be Raidho, where the H would be silent. Which would kind of make sense, because I feel like in a lot of cultures, the H is kind of silent when it's not the first letter of the word. So, what is Raidho? I'm going to insert a picture here at some point. Raidho is literally what it sounds like, riding, to ride. So this rune, especially back when it was first created, was definitely about traveling, but traveling specifically by horse. Because you were riding a horse. I'm just going to have my notes right here. So, the other thing, so horses, carriages, means of travel that you had back then, it kind of had to do with ships too, because that was really the only other main source of traveling, especially for Vikings and other Nordic folk, but this one, I feel like they didn't really mention ships a lot in my books or in the websites I personally use, so I think it's more about land travel, because that was more common for your everyday folk, not just the people that were, you know, trading and everything else. This was, calm down, Pooch, for the people back home, basically. Another good example of the rune was how most of the main gods had chariots. And I was laughing because it's funny to think about Thor's chariot was run by goats, and I really wish they would include some of this in the Marvel movies, because I think it'd be hilarious to see Chris Hemsworth with like a bunch of goats in front of him. Yeah, Freya had a carriage of cats, which I also thought was kind of an interesting choice of animal, because in the artwork, if you were going to have a carriage of cats, you would think like lions or something big for distance pulling, but in the artwork, it's like house cats, because they didn't really have a lot of big cats in the northern countries. Big cats were more of a Africa and Asia kind of animal, so if they had even seen them, that wasn't something very common to those folks back in the day. And Odin is always placed with Sleipnir, and that myth just, that's always a little strange to me, honestly, and I'm glad they left that one out of the Marvel universe, because Sleipnir is the 8-legged horse, and it's one of Loki's kids.
So he's riding his grandchild?
But Loki was the lady in that story.
Oh.
Yeah. Quick summary was that there was this, like, demon horse, like, attacking, I think, Asgard. And basically they were like, if we seduce it, it'll go away. And that's basically what they did.
They seduced a horse?
They seduced the demon horse. And Loki had Sleipnir as a baby. As a child. Yeah. So that was one of the interesting myths. Going back to the rune, though, sorry for the disconnect, in more modern terms, we are still talking about traveling. Now, you know, car, plane, train, boat, whatever, what have you. I feel that this used to mean, like, a longer journey, because journeying back in the day was a thing that you had to embark on, even if it was going to the next town. Sometimes that was a few days' journey, so you had to have food, clothing. You had to be prepared for that journey. Nowadays, we're like, oh, you know, that's 100 miles away, we'll just drive there or whatever. You know, you don't have to walk, you don't have to ride an animal to get where you're trying to go anymore, typically. So I kind of like this rune more for your everyday travel. So if you're going to school, you're going to work, you can go see family, friends, what have you, just you're traveling to wherever you're trying to go. And that's why a lot of people use Raidho as a amulet in their cars, because it is protection on the journey, basically.
I know.
Now, some other less physical aspects of the rune are creating the movement in your life, taking charge and initiative of your path, basically. So
chariot energy.
Oh, so is that okay? Interesting, because we'll get to that later. I wonder if they did that too. Now, the thing I really did like about Raidho was that, in my book especially, she had talked about how Raidho was the start of a journey. So, yes, it's good for your everyday journeys, but, like, kind of like what I just said about, like, initiatives and paths in life, this is kind of like...
What is it? Journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, kind of thought.
Yeah, pretty much, actually. That's a pretty good kind of quote to throw in there. Because this is about the planned out journey. Now, a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, what was that word? Did I write it down? So it's not a whimsical journey, because I feel like a lot of people think they do things on a whim, but I feel like a lot of people don't realize there were a lot of steps before they finally took the plunge. So I wrote down some of these examples that I kind of was like, things you might have thought were on a whim, but you might want to look back and kind of think about things. Moving, especially. We read all the time where people were just like, I need a new start, I need a new city. If you have the money and the wherewithal to do stuff like that, good on you. But typically, even if you do have the money and the wherewithal to just pick up and start anew in a different city, state, country, you've probably thought about that. Even if it was in passing, you know, like, we're in Texas, but maybe, you know, if you're, you know, say you're in Texas too, but you've always wanted to live on a coast, like East Coast, West Coast, that's going to be somewhere in the back of your mind, even if it's in your subconscious. Like, you know, maybe you're looking to, you know, live with more mountains, or you want ocean kind of energy, even if you're not on the ocean, but maybe you want to live close enough to the ocean where you can drive to it, maybe on the weekends or every other day or what have you, you know? So you're going to be thinking of, like, ocean energy, you're going to be thinking of, you know, the beach, you're going to be thinking of, you know, my thing is I really like mountains, so my thing would be, you know, in the back of my mind would be I'd like to go to the mountains more often, stuff like that. So that's not really on a whim. If you just pick up and move to California, like, you were already kind of thinking about it in the back of your head. Another kind of more... little dark talk, I guess, because runes definitely have both sides to them. We've done readings, you know, that it can get quite dark quite quickly, unfortunately. One of the things I was really thinking about was if you're moving all of a sudden because you're in a situation where you are in danger of some kind, abusive relationships, stuff like that, you know, sometimes it's just like it clicks and you just get out because you realize you have to, right? But that's obviously not on a whim. Like, no. Stuff was happening and then you made the decision to get out of that situation.
Yeah, there was a build-up that led to it.
So that's kind of what this rune's talking about. It's talking about you taking initiative and moving with your life, basically. And it's not something really done on a whim. It's not just kind of, it's not flippant. It's not just, haha, you know. And I really don't think moving in general is flippant, even if you think it is. I think it's just, it's a build-up, you know, either good or bad. Or, the most flippant I could think of was moving because you already had a job in another place. But even then, you had to do groundwork for that. You had to prep, you had a resume, you had an interview to then get that job.
Dog, you're bruising me. Ease up.
Calm down, puppy. You know, so, because I've had friends that they moved. I had a couple friends move to Japan for teaching. I had a couple friends move to Mexico for teaching. I had a friend move to China just to kind of...
And then she moved around when she was in China.
Yeah, like travel and all this stuff.
She got bit by the wander bug.
Yeah. So, you know, like, that has a lot of groundwork. That was prep work. Like, they decided to be teachers. So that was step 1. Yeah. They decided they wanted to teach in another country. That was step 2. Yeah. They got a job. That was step 3. They moved there. You know, there were steps. It wasn't just, I'm moving to Japan tomorrow. Like... You know, so there's definitely, like, a build-up to things nowadays. My other kind of more close to home, because, you know, we're both kind of grad school age over here, was if you're looking to go to school out of where you live, so out of state, out of country, especially if any of y'all are younger, looking to, you know, move further away from home, you know, trying to get that first step of independence, that is, again, taking initiative, you know, getting out there, kind of seeing what life has to offer you without, you know, if your parents, you know, are paying for it or whatever, yes, they're still kind of holding your hand, but that's still you having to figure out all this stuff, right? Like, that's still you not being close to home, you know, having to do laundry and stuff, maybe even for the first time. I know a lot of people, when they first go to college, that's their first kind of, I have an apartment, I have a dorm, I have to take care of my own stuff, right? For a lot of folks, even if they had other stuff, even if you lived at home or whatever, like, this is your first real, I'm really on my own, mom isn't showing up later tonight, like, I gotta take care of my dishes, I gotta take care of my clothes, or I'm just gonna be walking around in stinky rags. Or having crusty plates, you know? Like, it's your first kind of kick out the door, like, haha, life starts, right? So, I guess those are, like, really the positive aspects, because, I mean, it's the journey of life.
Yeah.
Now, hold on, I will, hold on, did I write that down? Or did I put that down later?
No, paper is not for you. You'll be causing trouble.
Yeah. So I'm gonna actually rewind a little bit, and negative aspects will come kind of, they'll be interwoven here in a second. Do you mind?
I know, he likes putting all of his, like,
all the weight.
all of his force behind it.
This kid right here. So the other kind of, burrs. The other kind of, and I hadn't really thought about this till I reread this section in my book, actually, was this rune can also come up in if you are on a path of initiation, especially in religious or, I don't want to say occult, religious or other kind of initiations. So that could be anywhere from priesthood, priestesshood, just being like an initiate in certain, cult has such a negative connotation nowadays.
I know.
But I mean, that's really
For instance, I have a gaming group that I'm a part of. I had to go through kind of a period where I had to play in several other games for them to see what my game style was and if I was able to immerse and connect with characters. And then on top of that, for the year-long campaign that I'm in right now, there was a group of like 20 of us, and we got wheedled down to like the four of us that ended up playing.
Dang.
So like there was a screening process. So I would feel like something like that.
Yeah, very, very astute, very kind of more modern-ish kind of stuff. But I liked kind of like what I pulled from the initiate thing, because I think the purpose there is that when you initiate, the thing I thought of originally was like voodoo, hoodoo kind of sex, because a lot of that stuff is you have to be initiated or you're not going to get the full picture. You're just going to get bits here, bits there of people that have felt or gotten permission to write about, but even then they're not going to divulge everything because they know not to, basically.
And it can probably be something just as simple as I know that meetup really isn't kind of a thing as much anymore, but like for certain groups, for like a coven or just a group that gets together for a particular interest or hobby, normally it's an invite only. So I would feel like situations like that might be included as well.
But I was thinking of it like when you initiate into anything, it doesn't even have to be religious or anything, but you're kind of stumbling in the dark a little bit because you don't really know what's going on, and you're being really led by a hand, or if you want to think about it more like out there terms, like it's like a floating light and you're down a dark tunnel kind of thing. And then you just kind of, as you go through, it lightens up because basically your mind is expanding. So expansion through consciousness, I guess, would be another good one, even though this isn't the rune for that. So kind of negative traits, but I'm gonna kind of like swoop them in and see how like they would kind of relate to the positive stuff. Raidho, when it's negative or when it's like a darker aspect, kind of could mean crisis or rigidness, being so in control of your path that it becomes a control freak aspect almost, where you're just unable to deviate even when it's necessary. Now, how I kind of looked at that was maybe if you didn't have, so starting with, so you say you had control of your path, right? So starting in a good spot, and then a lot of things started kind of happening, and then you felt like you were losing control, and you kind of just tightened up on it. And then it went the other way, where you were too firm, too stiff to kind of, like I said, deviate off your path, even if it was to get you back on the path, because roadblocks do and can happen. And so if something's here and you're still trying to get over here, going around it, you know, is going to be a lot easier than trying to break through it. Because sometimes this might be something too hard to break through. And so maybe finding another way around it, over it, under it, however, it might be easier in the long run. And it's still the same path. That's what a lot of people kind of forget sometimes at the end of the day. Or the opposite, where you had so little control over your own path at the beginning when you were first kind of starting it. And now I feel like this does affect kids a lot in a weird way, because, you know, when you're a kid, you're kind of dictated. Your parents have to take control because you are a child. You cannot make all these decisions yourself. But I feel that if parents especially grip those reins too tight, then their kids either gonna not know what to do once they have the reins, or if they don't know how to choose their own path once they are an adult, they might not be happy with their path, but not know how to deviate to find their own.
Or it could just be that once they're given the reins, they just run wild with it, and they don't know how to stop or moderate themselves. It's gonna work.
So, like I said, so that was my other part. So, lack of control, again, either because it's too tight or not tight enough. And then when you finally decide which way you're gonna go, and you're so afraid of that lack of control that you overcompensate again, and it's too much control. Or if it was too much control, like if you had this kind of life and you're happy with it, good on you. But I have seen things like kids that were in a lot of beauty pageants, or kids that were in a lot of sports or music, and that wasn't their thing. That was their parents living vicariously through them because they didn't do that as kids. A lot of kids are happy with it, you know, like they end up finding something that they do love or are passionate about, but a lot of these kids aren't, and sometimes they've been so ingrained, almost like a cult, that they can't break out. And then that's just, you know, that can just lead to like all kinds of chaos when they have to find something else, because this thing either, you know, beauty pageants aren't forever, for sure. Like, the minute you don't look like a model, you gotta find another job, you know.
This can also be kind of how I view very strict religious upbringing.
Yeah, that too. Very true. Yeah, so kind of both things. So it could come from a good situation and then end up bad, or bad to good to bad, or bad to bad. So all these kind of things. So it's all about your path and how you kind of handle it, right? Now, the other thing I kind of relate this to anxiety. It didn't really mention that, but I feel that anxiousness kind of comes from a lot of this desperation for change and being unable to do anything about it, or unknowing how to do it,
or
right?
Just being afraid that change is going to happen, regardless of whether you want it to or not.
And yeah, or wanting, so anxiety for things to change or things to stay the same can also be a thing. So I think like anxiety is something kind of where like this is the first one where it kind of came up as like a word for me. So I think like that's kind of one of the things, one of the negative aspects you can kind of have with this one, right? So kind of on the end side of that was at the end of the day, we are people. There's only so much control that we really have at the end of the day. Like, you do have control, but you can't be so rigid that you can't change, and you can't be so lackluster. I don't know what, like, basically the opposite of rigid. Like, just, you're too, I call it floaty, but that's not really a good word for it. So yeah, like, the other way, like, kind of just, what is the word for that?
There's a couple of different words, and none of them are coming to mind.
Jesus. Okay, so, basically, you don't want to be too stiff, and you don't want to just float along in life. It's basically saying, whatever your path is, kind of choose it, and...
Non-committal?
I'll take it. Being non-committal, right? So you want to find a good balance between rigidness, because you need the steps of the path, but you need also the fluidity to be able to move around it when you have to. Or, heck, like, it might deviate altogether. You might be on one path, and something happens, and you gotta branch out, you know? Like, all the way. Because, you know, like, there's, like, that one quote, right, where, like, someone comes to, like, a fork in the road in the forest or something. It's talking about, like, the road less traveled, but also, you know, if you come to a fork and what you're doing right now isn't really working for you anymore, you're gonna have to go on the one less traveled for you, because you're gonna have to start maybe all over again from zero, basically from scratch.
Don't just sit down in the dirt road and just say, well, I'll get up when it, you know,
I'll get to it eventually, or, you know, maybe this will work out some eventually, you know, because you're gonna keep getting deviations to it, and eventually, you know, you're either gonna have to, like, stand firm, but not too firm, or you're gonna have to branch out.
Moderation.
But, moderation's a good thing. Yeah.
Moderation is a good thing.
One of the things I like that, like, I just kind of, like, pulled out of all this, that I wrote this down, but you can't grip the reins so hard that you bleed. And I haven't ridden horses, but I'm sure you did horses, so I'm sure you know that if you're holding rope or anything too tightly, it's gonna, like, bust up your hands. Mm-hmm. But you also can't be so loose that they get ripped out of your hands, because what's gonna happen to that horse if you're not controlling it?
Oh yeah,
it's gonna run wild, right? So, kind of that, you know, aspect. So you gotta have a good balance between your choices, and I know the runes are really about fate and, like, not having a lot of choice, which is kind of ironic for having a rune that's about choices. But within that fate, you know, you do have choices to make, right? So, you know, if fate says you're gonna, I don't know, be a doctor, right? That doesn't mean what kind of doctor. You can have, like, different pathways to become a doctor, or become some other kind of instrument of healing. So it doesn't necessarily mean doctor in the modern sense. It could mean something else entirely that would also mean healer to the runes. You know, you gotta think about, it's all linear, right? You gotta think of what things meant and what they mean now, and kind of find a middle ground. But yeah, so balance between choices, fate, physical, spiritual, emotional, and your mental stuff, and the pathways that lead it. Yeah. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Nope.
Alright, well, that wraps up Raidho. I'll have pictures inserted here and there. That's just how I end up doing these. But yeah, we will get to this next one in 2 weeks, and that'll be Kanaz. That'll be interesting. So we will see you guys in another 2 weeks for Futhark Friday. Toodaloo!
Bye!